I think the most important thing is to stay grounded and remember who you are, no matter what happens around you. Hayley Mills once said that you should never read the notices written about you, whether they are good or bad, because both can change the way you see yourself. That advice came from hard experience. Imagine being a teenager who works 12-hour days and earns what feels like an impossible amount of money, around $17 million. You believe it is yours and that it will secure your future forever. Then one day, the government takes it away and tells you there is nothing you can do about it. That is exactly what happened to Hayley Mills. She was Disney's biggest young star, loved all over the world, yet she walked away from those years with almost nothing to show for it financially. And the story did not end there. What followed was even more unexpected and painful. There was a relationship that ended her childhood innocence too early, a long and difficult struggle with bulimia that lasted for years, and finally a memoir released in 2021 where she spoke openly about her experiences. In that book, she revealed how Disney once suggested she change her nose and even stopped her from wearing makeup, all in the name of image. Now, close to 80 years old, Hayley Mills is finally sharing truths that Hollywood tried to keep hidden for decades. Hayley Mills was born on April 18, 1946, in Marylebone, London. Britain was still recovering from the damage of World War II. Rationing was common, buildings were worn down, and life felt heavy and grey in many neighbourhoods. But inside the Mills family home, things felt very different. There was warmth, creativity, and constant conversation. Her father, Sir John Mills, was already a respected actor, and her mother, Mary Hayley Bell, was a writer and actress. Their home in Denham Village was often filled with artists of every kind. Writers, actors, and musicians came and went, staying late into the night, talking about stories, ideas, and performances. Famous figures like Noel Coward would casually appear, and young Hayley watched everything quietly, taking it all in. She grew up surrounded by stories and imagination. Her older sister Juliet and her younger brother Jonathan often practiced lines around the house while their father prepared for his next role. Acting was not something distant or mysterious for her. It was simply part of daily life. By the age of 5, Hayley was already copying her father's facial expressions without realizing it. She observed how he moved, how he spoke, and how he carried himself. When she turned 8, she began attending Elmhurst Ballet School. The training was strict, the schedule demanding, and the expectations high. The days were long and physically exhausting, but something about the discipline appealed to her. Even though the world outside was still healing from war, inside her family and her school, Hayley felt as though she was being prepared for something important, even if she did not yet understand what that something was. Her first real experience on a film set happened almost by accident. When she was 10 years old, she appeared briefly as a baby in a pram in the 1947 film So Well Remembered. The role was tiny and lasted only a moment, but it left a deep impression on her. She began accompanying her father to Pinewood Studios, where she watched him view daily footage from his films. She observed the cameras, the lights, and the way actors shifted in and out of character. One moment that stayed with her forever was seeing Alec Guinness on set, heavily made up and almost unrecognizable. He looked nothing like the man she knew in everyday life, and that transformation both frightened and fascinated her. It showed her how acting could completely change a person, turning them into someone else entirely. At home, life was simple. Ration books were still a reality, and post-war habits shaped everyday routines. At the studio, however, she saw a different world, one full of creativity and illusion. These two realities were so different that they made her curious about where she fit in. She felt drawn to the space between ordinary life and the magic of film. Everything changed when she was 12 years old. During a family picnic, she met director J. Lee Thompson. He was searching for a boy to play the lead role in a film called Tiger Bay. When he saw Hayley, his plans shifted instantly. He decided to rewrite the character for her instead. Suddenly, she was invited into a world she had only watched from a distance. Filming took place in the Cardiff Docks, an area that was old, rough, and soon to be demolished. The setting gave the film a raw and realistic feeling. Hayley stepped into the role naturally. She had no formal acting training, yet her reactions felt honest and unforced. In the story, her character witnesses a murder and refuses to reveal the killer. The emotional weight of that role was heavy, especially for someone so young, but she carried it with surprising strength. Tiger Bay was released in 1959 and became a success. Almost overnight, Hayley Mills was a star. She later said that the role suited her perfectly and that she rarely found another character that fit her so well. There was another version of the story too. She was 13 when she played Gilly, a deaf-mute girl who befriends a criminal. Thompson had met her at her father's home in Sussex and immediately changed his mind about the casting. During intense chase scenes, Hayley cried without being prompted, and critics praised her performance for feeling real rather than rehearsed. She won the Silver Bear for an extraordinary performance at the Berlin International Film Festival. For someone so young, the honor felt unreal. Behind the praise, however, there was exhaustion. The shoot was long and demanding. She learned Welsh phrases without understanding their meaning, simply to get the accent right. Older actors spoke to her about fame, loneliness, and the darker side of Hollywood. She listened quietly, surprised by how serious and heavy those conversations were. They made her realize that success did not always come with protection or happiness. Her father's reputation opened doors, but she still had to prove herself. One powerful moment came during a confession scene when she once again improvised, drawing on emotions connected to her parents' separation during the war. Thompson recognized something special in that moment and called her instinct pure. Audiences felt that honesty, even though she had never spoken those feelings aloud before. The success of Tiger Bay caught the attention of Walt Disney. He attended a screening in London without making a fuss and soon offered Hayley a 7-year contract without even asking for a screen test. She was only 13, and the salary of £250 a week was enormous at the time. Her life changed instantly. She became a Disney star almost overnight. Over the next 5 years, she appeared in 6 major films, including Pollyanna and The Parent Trap. Fame came quickly, and so did pressure. Reporters followed her everywhere, asking personal and sometimes uncomfortable questions. Her mother often had to step in to protect her. Even as a teenager, Hayley learned how to guard herself, lessons she carried into adulthood. Her role in Pollyanna marked a turning point. At 14, she traveled to the United States for the first time. Standing in front of Walt Disney himself, she recited the Glad Game speech from memory. He was impressed by her natural warmth. The film earned millions and turned her into an international star. Filming was physically demanding. She fell, tumbled, and rode a bicycle through difficult scenes, often going home bruised and sore. Yet she formed a close bond with her co-star Jane Wyman, sharing quiet moments between takes. That genuine connection translated on screen and made the story feel heartfelt. Pollyanna earned her a Special Academy Award in 1961 and a Golden Globe, making her the youngest non-competitive Oscar winner in history. Despite the success, there were hidden costs. Disney's exclusive contract meant she could not work with other studios until 1966. She was famous and wealthy but also limited in her choices during an important period of growth. Disney controlled her image closely, even suggesting changes to her appearance, like fixing her teeth for a more perfect smile. These demands hurt her deeply and made her self-conscious. She felt as though she was being shaped into an image rather than allowed to be herself. At the premiere of Pollyanna at Grauman's Chinese Theatre, thousands of fans crowded around her. The noise was overwhelming, and for the first time, she experienced a panic attack. Surrounded by celebration, she felt completely alone. That moment stayed with her, teaching her that fame could be both thrilling and terrifying. When she began filming The Parent Trap in 1961, Hayley showed a maturity beyond her years. Playing 2 characters required intense focus and long hours. She carefully adjusted her movements, posture, and expressions to keep the twins distinct. The work was exhausting, but she managed it with determination. Watching her perform, the crew saw not just a child star, but a serious actress working harder than anyone realized. Even Walt Disney himself came to watch her work, and later he admitted that no other child actor could have handled that level of accuracy and control. What impressed him most was that she made everything look effortless, even though it was extremely difficult. That same discipline showed up in the summer camp scenes as well. Before filming even started, she trained in fencing and rowing at a real camp in California. Everyone expected her to struggle or at least fall behind, but she did the opposite. She often outperformed boys who had been training much longer than she had. Maureen O'Hara later remembered seeing Hayley run full speed across open fields and then arrive at the lake completely ready to row, as if she had always been part of the team. Many of the playful moments in the movie came directly from her real experiences at camp. She picked up small pranks from the other campers, and that energy made its way into the film. The famous bear suit scare was inspired by that playful spirit. Scenes where she tipped over a canoe or jumped into messy pie fights were filmed over and over again. By the end of those days, she was so exhausted she could barely stand, but she kept pushing herself because she wanted the story to feel real. Her heavy breathing and visible tiredness stayed in the final cut, giving the film a natural spark that could never be acted. When The Parent Trap was released in 1961, her life changed all over again. The movie became Disney's biggest success of the year and earned $9.3 million in the United States alone. Almost overnight, her mailbox filled beyond imagination. Children wrote letters asking if she could switch lives with them the way the twins did in the movie. Some even seriously suggested twin swaps, believing she somehow had the power to make it happen. Disney fully understood what they had and promoted her image everywhere. Her face appeared on dolls, posters, and toys, all smiling back at the world. She also released a song called Let's Get Together, which reached number 10 on the Billboard charts in 1962. Even with that success, performing live terrified her. She struggled with intense stage fright, even while hearing loud applause. At just 15 years old, she felt overwhelmed by how quickly the world had taken hold of her. Still, she kept moving forward because she felt responsible to the children who believed in her and saw her as someone special. 2 years later, she stepped into another Disney film filled with summer charm. She played Nancy Carey and strongly insisted on singing her own vocals, even though Disney had planned to use a different voice. She was 17 and had no formal singing training, but she wanted audiences to hear her real voice. When she sang during rehearsal, the director stopped and listened closely, surprised by what he heard. There was something honest and emotional in her voice. The Sherman Brothers wrote several songs for the film, including The Ugly Bug Ball, and Burl Ives carried much of the musical weight with his warm presence. Still, Hayley's voice added a gentle, personal feeling to the soundtrack. Filming lasted from July to October 1962 and took place in Maine as well as on Disney's backlot. She practiced old-fashioned dances for hours, and during the Virginia reel, she twisted her ankle so badly she could barely walk. Even in pain, she delivered a quiet and emotional letter-reading scene that came directly from her own feelings of homesickness. The film earned more than $11 million, but critics described it as predictable. For the first time, Hayley began to question whether Disney's carefully controlled world had space for the deeper artist she wanted to become. She was still receiving nearly 7,500 fan letters every month, yet inside she felt uncertain. She once said she felt like an old flannel cloth, absorbing whatever was placed on her, even when she was not sure what she wanted to hold on to. Then came Whistle Down the Wind, and everything felt different. The film was shot in Burnley and Clitheroe using local Lancashire children, and the atmosphere was colder and more serious. Hayley played Kathy, a young girl who believes a runaway criminal might be Jesus. She adapted her accent to match the local sound, and her eyes carried a depth that went far beyond childhood innocence. Director Brian Forbes watched her during a powerful confession scene in a barn and realized she could reach emotional places far beyond her age. The film caused controversy across Britain because of its religious themes. During promotional tours, children asked her difficult questions about faith, and she struggled to answer because she was still forming her own beliefs. Despite the controversy, the film succeeded. It became the 8th most popular movie in the United Kingdom in 1961 and continued earning money for years. Critics praised her bravery, especially scenes where she stood up to a bully or quietly shared cigarettes with the fugitive. Forbes later said it was the most profitable film he ever directed, and much of that success came from Hayley's performance. A year later, her work took an even darker turn with The Chalk Garden. She played Laurel, a troubled 16-year-old with dangerous impulses. The film was shot on a real estate in Surrey, filled with tall windows and deep shadows. Hayley brought restless and intense energy into those rooms, portraying a girl slowly losing control. Her character loved crime stories and lied so smoothly that it was unsettling. In one powerful scene, she fed wood into a roaring fire while screaming as the flames grew higher. People on set whispered afterward because the moment felt too real. Critics were shocked by her psychological depth. Laurel was not sweet or innocent. She was dangerous, and Hayley fully committed to that darkness. The atmosphere on set was tense. Deborah Kerr expected strict discipline, while Hayley wanted freedom to explore her character. During a poisoning scene in the garden, Hayley delivered lines that were not in the script, making the moment sharper and more disturbing. Director Ronald Neame praised her courage and told her she was showing a maturity far beyond expectations. He even encouraged her to push further. Deborah Kerr disagreed, and tension grew between them. Hayley felt that pressure deeply. She was trying to prove she was no longer just a Disney child star. Even so, Disney continued to control her career. When Mary Poppins was being cast, Hayley dreamed of being part of it, but Walt Disney refused to release her from her contract. He told her the role did not suit her image. Instead, she was placed in The Moonspinners, filmed in Greece. She was devastated. Although the film earned $4 million, she never felt comfortable with its thriller tone. Her romantic co-star was Eli Wallach, who was 48, while she was only 17. The scenes made her uneasy, and her family shared those concerns. She later described the experience as shocking. She was growing up quickly, but still learning her limits, and the industry did not always protect her. By 1965, at 19 years old, she starred in That Darn Cat, a lighter story about a jewel thief, a clever young woman, and a mischievous Siamese cat, marking another chapter in a career that had already demanded far more than most people could imagine. Most of the chase scenes in the movie were created by Hayley herself. She did not simply follow instructions but added her own movements and ideas, surprising everyone in a good way. Her improvisation gave the film a playful and lively feeling that audiences loved. However, one stunt pushed her body too far, and she injured her knee during filming. Disney executives were alarmed because she was one of their most valuable stars at the time. Despite the pain, she barely complained. She continued filming and finished what she needed to finish, even though her knee was badly hurt. That dedication paid off in numbers. The movie earned about $37 million worldwide and became one of Disney's biggest successes. It officially made her the studio's most profitable young actress. Behind all those figures, though, was a young woman who kept taking risks because she wanted her work to matter. Each film shaped her a little more, pushing her forward even when fame felt heavy and exhausting. Hayley Mills was only 21 when she stepped into what she believed would be one of the happiest moments of her life. For years, she had been told that a trust fund worth around $17 million was waiting for her. It was supposed to be the reward for all the long hours she worked as a child and the success she brought to Disney. When her lawyer, Stanley Passmore, opened his briefcase and explained the situation, her entire world collapsed. He told her that the British government had taken 91% of the money. She was left with only 9%, and nearly £2 million disappeared instantly. Passmore mentioned that she could try to fight the decision, but then quietly added that if he were in her position, he would leave the country. Hayley later described feeling the blood drain from her face. Nothing in her imagination had prepared her for such a loss. The government explained it as part of post-war tax laws, but to her it felt like a deep betrayal. The trust that was meant to protect her had failed. Years later, she wrote that the state had plundered her trust like pirates, a line filled with pain and disbelief, capturing how it felt to lose her childhood earnings all over again. The years that followed were filled with hope and disappointment. In 1972, a judge named Lord Denning ruled in her favor. He stated that she should not be taxed twice on money that had already been taxed. For the first time in years, she felt relief and believed the Disney millions might finally belong to her. But that relief did not last. In 1974, the House of Lords overturned the ruling. They declared that the government had the right to the trust funds and pointed out that the original financial arrangements had been flawed. With that decision, the door closed permanently. The loss crushed her. She felt small and powerless, as if fame and innocence had been stripped away at the same time. That experience stayed with her and shaped how she later spoke about wealth, reminding others that money can disappear quickly, even when the world assumes you have everything. After the financial devastation, many expected her to fade away or accept roles out of sympathy. Instead, she surprised everyone. She chose serious work that challenged her and allowed her to rebuild herself. In 1981, she starred in the miniseries The Flame Trees of Thika, playing a woman living through major change in Kenya. Viewers noticed a deep emotional strength in her performance. Her monologues felt painfully real, and later she admitted she was pouring her own grief and loss into the character. That role marked a turning point. She was slowly putting herself back together, piece by piece. By the early 1970s, however, her struggles had already taken a serious toll. She developed bulimia, a disorder that crept into her life quietly. During the filming of Endless Night in 1972, she lost nearly 20 pounds due to purging and constant pressure. She had spent her childhood being told to stay young and innocent while the adult world pushed her forward before she was ready. That confusion and pressure turned into a private battle she hid behind a public smile. Years later, when she finally spoke about it, her honesty helped people understand that fame often hides deep personal pain. Theatre became another place where she found strength and rediscovered herself. In 1969, she made her stage debut as Peter Pan, flying 50 feet above the audience at the newly opened Victoria Theatre. People could hardly believe she was the same girl from Disney films. Night after night, she flew, fought, and performed with incredible energy. It felt like a rebirth, and the show sold out, driven by the excitement of watching someone reclaim their identity. In 1972, she returned to the stage as Rose Trelawney in Trelawney of the Wells. Her final scenes moved audiences to tears because they were filled with real emotion. She won the Theatre World Award for that performance, receiving it during a time when she was still rebuilding her confidence and financial stability. Years later, in 1987, she joined the television show Good Morning, Miss Bliss. Although teen shows were filled with new faces, her presence drew in a young audience that had no idea she was once a Disney star. Behind the scenes, scripts were adjusted and characters softened, but her chemistry with the cast helped keep the show alive and welcomed her back into American living rooms. It was a strange and touching twist to be admired by a new generation that knew nothing about the struggles she had endured. From 2007 to 2012, she appeared in the series Wild at Heart, playing Caroline Duplessis, a woman facing constant challenges. Her co-stars often spoke about her honesty and natural improvisation. She drew from her own disappointments, losses, and small victories. Over more than 60 episodes, she portrayed a woman who refused to shrink with age, and audiences connected deeply with her strength. Her later guest roles added even more depth to her career. In 2014, she appeared in Midsomer Murders as Lizzie Thornfield, calmly navigating dark secrets and crimes. In 2021, she joined the Wheel of Time as Guitara Moroso, bringing mystery and authority to a role that felt larger than its screen time. She had a unique ability to appear unexpectedly and leave a lasting impression. Her personal life was just as complex. She was only 20 when she began a relationship with Roy Bolting in 1966. He was 53 and married, and the age difference caused public outrage. She later said the relationship ended her innocence. They married in 1971, and she converted to Catholicism for him. Their son was born in 1973, but by 1977 the marriage ended due to his infidelity. She left with full custody of her child, carrying fears shaped by her own childhood and her father's emotional distance. Her second marriage, to Lee Lawson, began in 1975 and ended 2 years later. During that period, the emotional strain and professional pressure triggered a relapse of her eating disorder. She later admitted she had been hiding more pain than anyone realized, which eventually led her to seek therapy and speak openly about mental health. By the 1990s, healing slowly began. Visits to her parents' home in Sussex opened honest conversations about their wartime experiences. Her mother had worked as a nurse during bombings, and her father carried the silent weight of both acting and military service. Understanding their past helped her understand her own emotional distance and longing. She also grew closer to her sister Juliet, who understood the scars left by the industry. Her memoir, Forever Young, published in 2021, revealed even more truths. She spoke openly about Disney's control over her image, including being banned from wearing makeup to preserve a youthful look. She revealed that the studio once asked her to agree to altering her nose, which she refused. The book sold more than 100,000 copies and surprised even her publishers. Readers expecting gentle nostalgia instead found honesty about bulimia, her mother's alcoholism, and the devastating tax loss. In 2024, at 78, she appeared in M. Night Shyamalan's film Trap as Dr. Josephine Grant. She chased a serial killer through a crowded stadium, and her focus impressed everyone on set. Josh Hartnett praised her intensity, and the director highlighted her quiet strength. Audiences talked about her scenes long after the film ended, sensing that she was reclaiming power she had lost years earlier. Her personal life today reflects peace and joy. She has lived with her partner since 2010, and in 2025 she shared happy photos from Cornwall, standing with her 5 grandchildren under soft sunlight. She speaks openly about therapy and healing, and people respond because they see honesty and resilience. Her Disney Legends honor in 1998 became more than a title. She used it to speak up for young performers, warning about image control and financial traps, and urging the industry to protect children growing up in the spotlight. Now, nearing 80, her story stands as one of survival, strength, and truth, far bigger than any role she ever played.